Welcome into episode number 226 of Betting the Pitch with your host, the real underscore G Warner. It is late night as always. Well, I'm trying not to make it as always, but we're doing it tonight after Monday Night Football games ended, or the NFL Monday Night Football versions. We got some matches midweek. We have the Carabao or EFL Cup in England, which has a bunch of Premier League teams playing. Also, Serie A in Italy and La Liga in Spain are trying to catch up with their schedules, so they will be playing regular league calendar matches on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Also, there is a Bayern Munchen and RB Leipzig makeup match from when they played in the Continental Community Shield, whatever it's called, to open up the season, the Super Cup, I think it was in Germany. It's a couple no-name teams, so we'll see if we even get to that point. It's probably not going to make it on the show, but we'll see. We'll come up with an ultimate best bet at the end of the show, so stick around for best bets. I'm going to take my favorite from each of the different leagues, and then or tournaments or whatever we're covering today, and then get out of here with an ultimate best bet. If you're on YouTube, please hit subscribe for an Apple Podcast, or on Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. It'd be huge to get me up the search rankings, getting a lot more viewership or listenership or whatever we're calling. So I appreciate that. Of course, any feedback, comments, questions, concerns on the many different podcasts that are coming out. So this is going to be the soccer pod for the midweek. I'll probably be doing a baseball podcast tomorrow during the day as we get ready for a big Tuesday night with a lot of, last week of the season, everything coming down to the wire. We'll do an NFL podcast with my buddy Andrew Schnicker tomorrow night. So give him a follow if you're not already. Follow me if you're not already. Follow me on Twitter as well, the real underscore G Warner. He's A_SCHNITKER. And if you're not a patron yet, check out patreon.com, just the real underscore G Warner. That is the spot to really follow me and get everything that I'm doing across all the many different sports. Get my leans every night. If you download the app and turn on notifications, you get a buzz every time I lock in a play, add a write-up, or pretty much add thoughts on what I'm doing for the day. I highly recommend that. I'm sure a lot of the patrons on there would agree. And if you subscribe on other platforms, it's a very different price point. So check that out. Patreon.com/the real underscore G Warner. So let's get into it. All lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced use is offered on almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in the podcast description to fund your account and use the promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. So now we have some extra money in our account. Let's jump right in. I'm going to start where the money is. And surprisingly, that is it's always in England. So we'll start with the Carabao Cup. Going to be a lot of skips here because there are a lot of smaller clubs in leagues that I don't follow closely or have ever even know what league they're in. But I'll go through as many as I can, especially highlight what's happened based on Premier League activity and things of that nature. So Salford City hosts Burnley on the first, window Tuesday. So that's coming up very soon. Probably already Tuesday in Eastern time zone in the United States, and definitely already Tuesday in England. But Salford City hosts Burnley. Salford City 1.25 goal underdog at home. Over unders 2 3/4. Juiced heavily the over. Burnley coming off a pretty disappointing performance. A better performance, but ultimately a 1-0 loss to Manchester United. Was brutal. They deserve better. I thought they played very well. Looked like they should have been ahead a couple times to get Manchester United, but unfortunately, Manchester United always seemed to. This was a put up or shut up type match for them after Bayern Munich loss on the road in München. Also, a really awful start to the season. Lots of questions being asked about Eric Ten Hag, who seemed like he was assuredly in the job for a long time to come. But then all it took was just a really bad start to a season, and that potentially could have changed. Good win for Manchester United. Really disappointed for Burnley, especially because they're trying their best to stay in the league after being relegated 2 seasons ago, but getting promoted last season, and now they're really off to a poor start. I got big questions about who they're going to play. You'd think that they are going to try to rest people as much as possible, but there's also the idea that you want to get momentum started, and facing a bad team or a team from a lower league like Salford City would be huge for a team like Burnley to try to get some momentum going. But line certainly suggests that there's a big gap between the lineups they're going to be playing in this matchup, but ultimately I've kind of found that these cups, no one really knows who's playing until lineups come out. So My suggestion would be to wait and see who's playing for Burnley if you want to make a play on this one. Next, go to Exeter hosting Luton Town. Another similar situation, newly promoted in the Premier League. Exeter 3/4 goal underdog at home with more of the juice on Luton Town. Over under is 2.5, juiced all the way to the over. Luton Town, I'm surprised to see an over with them because they really have shown no offense at the Premier League level. They are going on the road here, and it is against a lower league team, but I'm still not a huge believer in whatever the heck they're trying to do. I feel like Luton Town if there's ever a time to rest people and really focus on staying in the Premier League, it's here. A similar type of story with Burnley, though. They need to get some sort of win. I think they just got their first point off of a fairly questionable penalty kick as a result of a handball that was called. I think it's a handball, and which is usually not my side on these things. Usually I hate that the penalties are given because they change games so much. But from my perspective, point of view, all that sort of stuff, I don't know necessarily what Luton can gain from. I mean, they can gain some momentum and some confidence, but they need to be worried about trying to stay in the league. They also have this week another midweek match coming up, a makeup match, I think, against Burnley as well. So if there's ever a time to rest people, it's for this Exeter match. So I feel like if you're going to take a position on Luton Town, you got to make sure that lineup is out as well. Next, go to Mansfield, Peterborough. I don't know anything about either of those teams. Ipswich then hosts Wolves. And I'm surprised to see Wolves a pick 'em right now. Almost all the juice on the Wolves side, pretty much all of it. Over under is 2.5, juice to the over. I got some real questions about Ipswich. Maybe they have a huge fan base or are really talented or something like that. Wolves have been pretty competitive. I mean, they were Gary O'Neill, their manager, was going nuts this weekend, I'm sure, as well, about the penalty that was given to Luton Town. But ultimately, Wolves are a good. I mean, they've been playing better than I've expected, considering how much they've lost in talent versus what they used to have. Gary O'Neill came in because Julian Lopetegui basically left, I think, because he realized the team was going to be really bad and did his best to try to change that potentially play hardball with management, and that clearly didn't work out very well. So I got a lot of questions about this number. It seems really cheap, which is not, I got to say, in European competitions and also in these cup competitions, I am really not interested in, or I'm doing my best not to back the big teams that have shady lines, because unfortunately I feel like there's ever a time to trust the market, it's whoever the heck is betting Ipswich. It's going to look really bad if they get blown out at home or something like that. But this is a really tough scenario for Wolves to go on the road, sandwiched in between matches, that they're worried more about staying in the league than winning the Carabao Cup. Bradford then hosts Middlesbrough. Port Vale then hosts Sutton United. Don't have much on those two, but last one on Tuesday is Manchester United hosting Crystal Palace. Currently, Manchester United a 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice. Over unders 2.5, juiced all the way to the over. I'm waiting for this at +1. Don't have it yet, but I'm pretty interested in Crystal Palace, just from this kind of standpoint that Manchester United still have not looked very good, even in winning against Burnley. I was very unimpressed. I do feel like they are in a position where potentially it's a good idea to start buying them. But I'm not necessarily sure that now is the time I want to do that personally. And I also I don't really know if they're in a position where they're going to be like covering big spreads like this, really. Ultimately, Manchester United, that is, have had big problems in that team. They've bought they haven't been able to buy as many players as they wanted to, which is a major problem for them. That's been a problem, clearly. And the players they did buy, like Mason Mount and such, haven't really made a lot of sense on why they bought those type of players, because it hasn't worked very well. Maybe that'll get to a point where it will work, but until that happens, I'm very interested in fading them. Crystal Palace don't have a lot of offense, played under with them this weekend. Eze is the best creator on the pitch almost every time he plays, unless he's facing one of these best teams. Bruno Fernandes is probably the best in this one, but Eze is a problem and can cause some problems. I think if Crystal Palace hit +1, I'll be very interested. Even then, until that happens, it looks like we're gonna get 2 3/4 on total here. If I got to 3, I think I'd be very strong looking at under, because I just don't really believe in Manchester United's offense, and I feel like they've also had to cover for their defense and played not as aggressively in attack, because they know that starting a Lindelof and Evans partnership with Varane, I guess, not able to play 90 minutes yet. That is a big trouble problem area. So I think there's a lot of Crystal Palace interest for me, both to the side and their defense as well, which has been pretty good, especially getting Gahey back this weekend. That was important. And seeing that they hang around this matchup +1 and under 2 3/4 potentially would be where I'm looking. But right now we only have unfortunately 3/4 and 2.5. Both are not like no plays at those numbers, but we'll see. Especially because Manchester United and all the big clubs get bet like crazy. Moving next to Chelsea and Brighton. So Chelsea are a team that I want to bet against every time they play. Their schedule is going to get really tough soon, unfortunately, which is going to make it really hard to just bet against them with an underdog and an under every matchup and usually profit, and usually win both. But here, Chelsea are currently a quarter goal favorite at home to Brighton, who have had some of their issues as well. They're also playing in multiple competitions, which Chelsea are not, besides the cups in the domestic cups, I guess. Brighton are playing in Europa League, and they've got a team that hasn't really played on that level before, that they're trying to expand upon and play a bunch of minutes with their players. Unfortunately, or fortunately for Brighton, I guess, start with fortunately. Fortunately, it hasn't really hit them yet because they've only played one European match so far. I would expect them to eventually run out of gas, but it hasn't happened yet. And they're probably going to be up for this matchup. They just won at Manchester United in the league a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of I guess it was last weekend. So not the weekend that just happened. So 2 weekends ago. Trying to keep the date straight at this hour is tough. But anyway, I'm very interested in Brighton getting that quarter of a goal. Even right now, I feel like that is probably my biggest interest in this one. Normally, I want to play unders, but with Brighton, they're very scary, and I don't have a push on 3 just yet. So I think I'll probably wait for that number. But I still really like Brighton getting a quarter of a goal. Next, go to Brentford hosting Arsenal. Currently, Brentford a half a goal underdog with all the juice at home right now. Over unders 2 3/4. Juice split both ways. I'm interested in the home dog Brentford here, but they have not been playing well lately. Unfortunately, they've had a really easy run in to start the season and have really kind of choked up 3 points in a lot of these matches, including a really bad loss to Everton this weekend. Yeah, you could probably argue that Everton played really well and finished some chances that you wouldn't expect them to, but Brentford shouldn't have given up that many. And then ultimately, it was eventually their undoing. Arsenal, on the other hand, are dealing with a lot of injuries. Of course, they're playing Champions League, where Brentford are not playing anything but domestic competition. Arsenal had to play Jorginho, who made a really big error. I can't even understand like a veteran player just trying to play around the ball, getting it so easily stolen from him, and then leading to a goal for Tottenham, who really that was their way back in the match because it didn't look like they were going to do too much. From I guess in Arsenal point of view, like they're trying to win every competition they're playing in. They're playing in 4. Does that really change too much now? I don't necessarily know. I feel like they're ultimately, it's going to run its course at some point, and they're going to be playing in too many places. I still wonder about Arsenal having not played in Champions League last year, have this huge weight under their, I guess, or there's a weight on their shoulders about trying to win the Premier League as well as doing whatever they've been doing in this competition plus the others. I don't know. I feel like Brentford is a spot I really like. They play really well at home. They've had good success in the Premier League at home against Arsenal as well. I don't really have a feel for the total, which I feel like I generally, if I'm backing an underdog who's at a much lower budget, I would like to lean under as well. I'm fairly worried about Arsenal because they can score a ton of goals, but they haven't done a good job this year of closing teams out either. And if this goes to extra time with or draws late, last few minutes will be even more conservative, I would expect. So it does make it interesting to me to see potentially where Brentford climb to, though, with a ton of juice right now on the home team. I would expect that'll change by the time kickoff occurs, but who knows? And based on lineups and all that sort of stuff, it really is it's a tough thing to project even a day before or 2 days before. Fulham then hosts Norwich City. Fulham a 1-goal favorite at home, over unders 2 3/4, juice to the over. A lot more juice on Norwich on the road. Fulham's offense has been pretty bad, but they're also facing a championship side at home. So think I'm most interested in under here, under 2 3/4. I expect Norwich to go in. I haven't been following very closely, but I expect Norwich to try to play pretty conservatively, especially going on the road to a Premier League club. Fulham, I don't trust to score goals at all right now. So until that changes, which it certainly won't, even in this matchup, I'm also very interested if 2 3/4 becomes 3, because I do love that push on 3 versus playing under 2 3/4, having it land 3, losing half your bet. Blackburn Rovers and Cardiff, I'm not going to say anything about. Bournemouth then hosts Stoke. Currently, Bournemouth a very juiced 3/4 goal favorite, so that probably climbs to 1 before kickoff. Over under is 2 3/4, split juice both ways. Bournemouth are going to be a team that want to counterattack you. That's the way Anthony Iraola played at Rayo Vallecano, and is basically doing the same thing as a lower budget side here in the Premier League. But they're going to be a favorite here, about to be a 1-goal favorite when the movement or when this line updates really. Stoke are fighting their way to try to get back to the Premier League. It's been a while. I would expect they're going to go in and play very conservatively. So that what's going to happen there is Bournemouth are going to want to counterattack you. So they're almost going to let Stoke have the ball, which I feel like a lower division squad will just pass the ball around and try to keep it as low scoring as possible. Take few chances, but try to build up from the back over and over again. And Bournemouth are going to try to press and do something that way. But that doesn't, to me, sound like a lot of goals. So I think my biggest interest in that one is under 2 3/4. Next, we'll go to Aston Villa hosting Everton, a 2 Premier League match, thankfully. Villa, a 3/4 goal favorite, juice is split both ways. Over under is 2 3/4, with also the juice split both ways. I'm not expecting Everton to show what they did against Brentford this weekend. Aston Villa are in a bunch of competitions, but they have a much deeper squad, a much more accomplished manager and players and things of that nature. Everton, on the other hand, I mean, they played really great defense against Arsenal a couple weekends ago at home. Really did nothing for the whole matchup, but that was kind of what they wanted to do. Against this Aston Villa side, I imagine they'll probably play a similar way, though they've probably feeling pretty good about themselves that they're finally getting a win and matching their scoring total for the entire season with 3 goals last weekend. I'm not a believer that will continue, though, so I'll put out an interest in under 2 3/4 in that one. Lincoln then hosts West Ham. Currently, Lincoln a 1 1/4 goal underdog at home, with all the juice in West Ham on the road. Probably climbing to 1.5 before this kicks off. Over unders 2 3/4, juiced all the way to the over. I like unders with West Ham, but they have found a way when they're facing bad competition to score a lot more goals, and they've honestly scored a lot in the Premier League so far this season. I'm expecting them to rotate quite a bit because they are playing in the Europa League this year, but we'll ultimately see. Lincoln, I think we're able to get through Sheffield United, I want to say, last round, so they've already got 1 scalp, but I think that was in penalties, so and there's a big difference between West Ham and Sheffield United at this point. Liverpool then hosts Leicester, the favorite in the Championship, to come back up to Premier League after being relegated last season. Liverpool 1 1/4 goal favorite, a little more juice on the home Liverpool side at Anfield. Over under is 3 1/4. Juice very heavily to under. Leicester's defense was awful last season, but they've moved out a lot of players. They've sold a ton of assets, but yet are still expected to be one of the better teams and were the big favorites to win the championship when that all kicked off. Liverpool scored a ton of goals. I kind of felt like they didn't necessarily deserve to cover 1.5 last weekend against West Ham, but they did. Leicester are going to go in. I don't know. It's hard for me to understand how Leicester are going to take this matchup without looking at a lineup, because I would expect them to be focused fully on the championship, which they're playing matches in that all the time, like 2 a week. On the other side, Liverpool they're playing in Europa League, which is probably not that important to them compared to domestic cup, but at the same time, and they're so deep as a squad, so it might just be a time to try to get some usage out of their younger players. But I don't necessarily know what that will look like. It's one of those, unfortunately, wait till lineups can be kind of annoying because it's an hour before and everything runs up to each other because everything seems to start at the same time, especially on weekdays in these midweek type matches. But that's the best I think I can give you. And last but not least, Newcastle hosts Manchester City in the biggest probably matchup of them all, and the last one to kick off. Newcastle a pick'em right now, but all the juice of Manchester City, and then some. So it really is probably a 1/4 goal at most other books. Over under is 2 3/4, juice pretty heavily to over. Newcastle their team I'm looking to be against this year. Haven't had a ton of success with it because they basically rode no offense to continuously win all these matches and win them by large margins. I feel like they're the ultimate momentum team, and they are at home here, which will be huge. They'll have a big crowd behind them. And I feel like Newcastle probably wants to kind of set themselves up to kind of get away from the bad start they had to start the season. Man City, on the other hand, everything's going just as according to plan as has been. Haven't lost a match yet. Maybe have struggled a little bit more than you'd expect from a lot of their weaker opponents. But ultimately, I think Newcastle are the side that I'm looking at here as a home dog, but because they're not going to close a favorite to Man City. But at the same time, even at a quarter of a goal, that's still such a low number to have to really beat Manchester City to win a full bet. Asking to do that is a lot. I mean, it happens, of course, but that's a lot. Over under. I mean, I generally like unders with Newcastle, but Man City, they usually don't keep clean sheets in the Premier League. There's a very good chance there's some rotation for Manchester City. Newcastle probably take this competition as least important of all of them. So it's another one where I have to look at what these lineups look like. I guess I lean to Newcastle at this point, but it's really not that strong. For my best bet in the Carabao Cup in England, I'm going to go with Brighton getting a quarter of a goal on the road at Chelsea. Certainly taking a risk that it might not be the strongest lineup of all time, but it's a risk I'm willing to take at this point. Now let's see if my website would load, that would be nice. Looks like Bet Online is having a little bit of trouble. Okay, we're live now. Starting in Tuesday matches in Spanish La Liga, we have Sevilla hosting Almeria. Currently Sevilla a 1-goal favorite at home. All the juice on Almeria, over unders 2 3/4, with a split juice both ways. So I think from where I sit with Almeria, they we're bottom of the table, but we're able to get a draw at home against Valencia. That's very surprising me. They were underdogs at home to Valencia, but had a really kind of back and forth match. Now they go to Sevilla, who have a huge crowd, but ultimately haven't been very good this season either. Are playing in Champions League, which is hilarious based on how poor they were in La Liga last season. But the full goal of insurance is pretty hard for me to look away from. I'm fairly interested in that, to say the least. So Almeria +1 is interesting to me. I don't really think I have a feel for the total because Almeria defense has been questionable, to say the least. They were beaten so easily on the wing against Valencia last weekend, and that's been a problem for them. They seemingly keep trying right backs that just are incapable. So that's a big concern for me because Sevilla have a lot of big names that could certainly exploit a weakness like that. It's very juice +1 right now. I don't think I want to play less than that. And because I am worried about some fireworks potentially offensively. And usually if you want a dog, especially an underdog on the road, you want a low scoring match. Next, we go to Mallorca hosting Barcelona. Currently Mallorca, a 1-goal underdog at home. Almost all the juice on Barcelona on the road. Over unders 2.5, juiced more to the over. Mallorca, they, to me, haven't had a great start to the season. Got embarrassed this weekend by Girona in the Barcelona area. But this is a good position for them to catch Barcelona off of an amazing comeback victory with I think 3 goals in the last 10 or 15 minutes against Celta de Vigo at home. At home at their weird stadium in the Olympic Stadium or whatever. But Mallorca, they're going to play really defensively. They play very well at home. I don't think I'm as interested in +1 as I am in the under 2.5. Barcelona unders have been the gift that keeps on giving for a long time now. They've been scoring a lot lately. I think they've had 3 consecutive overs, but I'm not a believer that they've completely changed who they are, or that adding Joao Felix to a lineup has suddenly made them an efficient offensive team. Mallorca are going to sit in defense 4-5-1 or 5-4-1, probably the Aguirre style, the Mexican manager. And they're going to make it they're going to force Barcelona to really, they're going to probably beat them up as much as they can. They're going to use every tactic in the book to try to stall the match out. I would expect that it's going to be really hard for Barcelona to get 3. I think if this goes over, it's probably because Mallorca get on the scoreboard, but I think that's probably really hard to expect or to really feel good about. So for me, under 2.5 looks very interesting to me in that one. Real Madrid then hosts Las Palmas in the early matchup on Wednesday. I guess we got an early window of them. Real Madrid, a 1 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice. Over unders 3.25, juiced to the over. Las Palmas got a big win in stoppage time this weekend. to me, they're Barcelona light. Basically, they don't have any of the talented players, but they want to possess the ball and really keep it from you, which Real Madrid will probably be okay with to a certain extent because they do like to play counterattacking football, especially in Champions League. But this is a La Liga team on a short week. Came off a pretty emotional victory with a 90+2 or second minute of stoppage time winner from outside the box. There are some concerns here. The Las Palmas celebrated quite a bit, but I feel like they will take Real Madrid as seriously as anything. Going to the Bernabeu is tough, but Real Madrid also are winning all these matches, literally scoring off of big mistakes at the end. It's always Jude Bellingham, and I love the guy. He's awesome, but this cannot continue. I think I'm less interested in the +2 that it looks like Las Palmas is trending towards. But a total above 3 for a Real Madrid match just is too high, just based on how they've been playing. They still really miss Karim Benzema. Even if Vinny Jr. does come back for this one, we'll see how good he is after 6 weeks or so out. So I like under 3.25 in that one. Villarreal then hosts Girona. Currently Villarreal a quarter goal favorite at home. Over under is 3. Juice the under slightly. Juice a split on the side, actually. Girona have been a far better team than Villarreal so far this season. They were leading La Liga until Real Madrid, I think, won this weekend. But ultimately, Girona have been great and deserve, I think, really what they've done so far. They've scored a lot of goals. They're really solid defensively. And they have signed some really, really good players to like Sigankov, the Ukrainian. Dovbyk as well up front is a load to defend, and they've got a lot of talent. Villarreal have already sacked their manager, have had a ton of players leave. I'm just not a believer in them whatsoever. It does feel like a pretty short number at only getting a quarter of a goal on the road at the Promesa Ceramica, which is a pretty tough stadium to play in, especially now that they've completely redone it. It's like this huge yellow spaceship in the middle of a Valencia region or whatever. But Girona, getting a quarter of a goal is interesting to me, and I think it sticks around and it probably closes there. So good chance that you take Girona, go on the road to Villarreal, frustrate them. If they can avoid a late goal in the 6 minutes of stoppage time like Almeria did, I think Girona can get out of there with a win or a result at the very least. Athletic Club then host Getafe. Currently Athletic Club a 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice likely moving towards 1. Over under is 2.25, juiced heavily the under. I don't see goals in this matchup. Getafe are going to go in, especially on the road, and be very physical. Definitely puts them at risk of getting red cards because they love to do that. Nakonam Jane is one of the most aggressive, ridiculous players I've ever seen. Yet he plays every match for Getafe, so I don't know what to say about that. I think he's even club captain now. Athletic Club, on the other hand, still haven't had Nico Williams for a while. They've scored a bunch more goals than I would expect. I still don't believe that they're a good enough team for that. They had a good win at Alaves on Friday last week, but ultimately I'm just still not really I don't believe that they're going to score efficiently. They've certainly done it so far to start the season, but I feel like all good things come to an end, and they're not even good at that. So, but at the same time, this one looks like it's moving down towards 2. It might take it off my card because I don't really want to play it under 2. I feel like there's so many things that can go wrong. And the way La Liga hands out penalties, it makes any sort of number total going under look dangerous, but especially one so low with a very physical side like Getafe. Valencia then hosts Real Sociedad, and another very respectful Valencia line. It kind of started last season when they were fighting relegation and kind of resurfaced or kind of survived that. But we're pretty close to favorite, or we're a favorite at Almeria, and then eventually got bet down to about pick'em and then drew on the weekend. But now they're hosting Real Sociedad, a Champions League side who just drew Inter Milan, just had a good win this weekend. Certainly not everything's been perfect for Real Sociedad. They've really struggled to hold leads, and that's a concern. But I'm looking forward to Valencia moving to a favorite because I look to be against them as much as possible. They are a good young team that will probably be very good 2 or 3 years from now. But there's a long way and a long list of growing pains for them before they become a team that should be considered equal, even at home. Mestalla, which has not really been a huge crowd support. That's probably turning as the team's been performing better. But ultimately, I'm looking at Real Sociedad and hoping that they climb to a quarter goal underdog. Over under is 2, very juiced to the over. Until I see a 2.25, I'm not really interested. And I gotta say, Real Sociedad Their offense is still pretty talented. They struggle at times to find the net, but their defense is a little bit open. Unfortunately, it has been this year. So I don't think I have any interest in that total, or at least going under on that total. Cadiz then hosts Rayo Vallecano in the nightcap on Wednesday. Cadiz currently I pick them with all the juice over unders 2.25, juiced very heavily to the under. Cadiz with a really good performance at Real Betis took a lead. Their goalkeeper kept them in it. Had a couple of really great saves at the end to cash an under for me, which I really appreciate. That's the way I lean here. I feel like Rayo are not the same team without Andoni Iraola as their manager, who's left for Bournemouth, as I already mentioned earlier on this podcast. New manager was at Elche, amongst other stops, and really has looked really unimpressive to me. And there's something missing, unfortunately. Rayo have lost some talent. Fran Garcia left for Real Madrid. Santi Comasanya went to Osasuna, and there's been others. But ultimately, Cadiz are the side I want here. Unfortunately, they're a very juice pick 'em right now and probably climb to a favorite. I guess that would then make me flip and kind of want to back Rayo Vallecano because Cadiz is a favorite or something I'd like to be against. Not really known for having the ball or much of it, and also ultimately they really struggle to keep other teams out. I feel like they concede every match. It almost feels like at this point. I do feel like that under 2.25 is interesting, but it's also very juiced at the moment. If that falls to 2, I'll probably skip that one as well. Moving to Thursday, Celta de Vigo hosts Alaves. Currently Celta, a 3/4 goal favorite at home. Almost all the juice on Alaves on the road. Over under is 2, juiced very heavily to over. We might see 2.25, but we don't have it yet. Alaves have really not done much offensively away from home. Their defense had been great. They didn't play very well against Athletic Club, but ultimately got beaten from a pretty good performance from Iñaki Williams, who of course missed a couple easy shots as well, but they did enough. And Alaves look like a team at home you want to back and potentially on the road you want to avoid. The thing is with Celta de Vigo, though, is that they are probably crestfallen, heartbroken, whatever you want to use, after collapsing from a 2-0 lead on Barcelona on the road in the last 15 minutes last weekend. They've got a few days to overcome it, and at home will probably be in a much better situation. But Celta de Vigo, I'm still not trusting a team that now is a defensive manager, formerly was all out attack. I don't think that's going to go very well, and I don't think Rafa Benitez is really going to do much to improve a team that's going to try to outscore you or always has. Now they're going to try to defend, so I feel like that pushes me towards under. But with 2, even getting odds right now, I don't think I want that. Granada then hosts Real Betis. Currently, Granada a 1/4 goal underdog at home with all the juice, or almost all of it. Over under is 2.5. A little bit more juice to the under. Granada are off to an awful start. They look like a team that are going down recently, or newly promoted side that really just had such a good match. Finally, we look like they're going to keep a clean sheet until stoppage time and conceded a pretty awesome goal from outside the box, but one that probably should not be conceded, especially not in that situation. They've been conceding a ton of goals. Real Betis doesn't really seem like they're in a great run of form right now. Collapsed to the loss despite taking a 2-0 lead early at Athletic Club, and then lost at Rangers in Scotland in Europa League this week. So like things have not gone great. Then drew Cardiff at home. We're behind early. So that Betis attack really looks like Isco kind of on his own right now, creating William Jose, making, I guess, immaculate shots from dead ball set pieces. I don't really think that Betis are in a position to score a ton of goals here. It's really hard to want to back Granada for an under, especially without a team like Las Palmas were a perfect setup for an under for them to finally see a team that they're playing against. They're an underdog on the road who's going to have the ball, doesn't really have much of an offense to speak of. But at this point, I mean, I guess it kind of describes Real Betis a little bit as well. So I do like that under 2.5. It just feels a lot higher than a lot of the rest of these matches. And ultimately, I don't think Granada really have an easy route to goals. Last but not least, on Thursday, we have Osasuna hosting Atletico Madrid. Currently, Osasuna a 1/4 goal underdog at home with all the juice on Atleti. Over under is 2.25, juice all the way to the over as well. Osasuna have really had a bad start to the year. They are, speaking of crestfallen, heartbroken like Celta de Vigo. I feel like that happened with Osasuna as they crashed out of the Europa Conference League. They did buy and try to build their squad, and that hasn't changed. They haven't gotten rid of anybody. But things have not started well for them. They're a good team at home, but only getting a 1/4 of a goal from Atleti is not probably enough for me just yet, even though I do love home dogs. Osasuna have treated me very well in the past. I'm not sure that these clubs are that similar. Atleti are so talented. They had a really great end of last season, finished it really well. I'm not sure that this year started off so well for them yet, but I think my bigger interest, rather than Osasuna getting a quarter of a goal right now, is in that under 2.25. But that's also, I mean, not that hard to see 2 goals in this matchup, and then you're holding on for dear life just for a half win on 2.25. Maybe this climbs to 2.5, and that becomes a little bit more interesting. But ultimate Atletico Madrid, they have goal scorers, and they can really put a lot past Osasuna with the way that Griezmann, when he's on, is really, really terrifying to potentially be against. So for my best bet, it seems like I love a lot of unders in La Liga. And I think there's a good reason for that, because they haven't really scored a ton of goals over the past few seasons. And some of these totals feel really a lot bigger than they should be. I think Las Palmas, they're a team that I've been backing going under a lot lately with. I don't really see a reason to stop there. So I think I'm going to go with under 3.25. Las Palmas visiting Real Madrid is my best bet from Spain. Last but not least, we're going to go through Italian Serie A, and then I'll summarize with best bets and an ultimate best bet end of show. We'll start on Tuesday with Juventus hosting Lecce. Currently Juve, a 1-goal favorite with almost all the juice. Over-under is 2.5, juice to the under. Lecce have been really competitive this year. They are a team that I really like. They did have their captain sent off a couple of matches ago. I think he will return for this matchup, and that's huge, especially because you need as much as you can right now to really deal with Federico Chiesa, who's been so good for Juve, the former Fiorentina player. Dusan Vlahovic still leaves a little bit to be desired. And I guess I am interested in 2.5 here as well, because ultimately, or the under, because Juve, when they take leads, Allegri, his style is really just to try to kill the game and win 1-0. So that really also kind of fits Lecce getting a goal of insurance too, especially when this juice on this one suggests we might even get 1.25 before it all kicks off. So I'm interested in that. I think Lecce and also under 2.25. So Lecce +1, under 2.25 are both very interesting to me right now. We'll go next to Wednesday. We'll start with Cagliari hosting AC Milan. Currently, Cagliari a 3/4 goal underdog at home with almost all the juice on AC Milan. Over under is 2.5, juice to the under. And Milan really started off the year great. Didn't go so well. Started Champions League right before that, losing the Milan derby to Inter. They're kind of trying to figure it out right now. I think Cagliari are interesting to me, but not until I get a full goal of insurance, probably. And I don't think I want to play an under with Milan. Verona then hosts Atalanta. Currently, Verona a 3/4 goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over under is 2.5. Juice the under slightly. Atalanta are not a team I want to play under with. They've been pretty good, I think, ultimately. To start the season, looks like the Ketelare just needed to get out of Milan. Has been a lot better under Gasparini. Lookman's been playing well too, of course. So Verona, it's a big price on them, but I feel like I need to get that full goal of insurance. It doesn't look like it's going to come. Empoli then hosts Salernitana. Currently, Empoli a 1/4 goal favorite at home. Over under is 2.5. Juice to the over, and also a lot of juice on Salernitana right now. Empoli have not gotten off to a good start. I think the only team in Serie A that has gone scoreless in their first 5 matches that were all defeats. Got their manager sacked. I don't really know what that's going to do. They're still a team that were expected to go down a couple seasons ago. They've been surviving, but this one looks really tough after a really bad start. But Salernitana haven't won either. I think I'm most interested in Salernitana here because of Candreva. I don't know the status of Bouladia, but ultimately he's been like on suspension or on timeout essentially because he was trying to move to Wolves, kind of behind the club's back apparently after signing a big deal this offseason or in the summer transfer window. That's clearly causes some problems, but I think Salernitana are the most interesting to me getting a quarter. I also like under 2.25 because I don't really think either are going to score too much. Napoli then hosts Udinese. Currently Napoli a 1.25 goal favorite at home with almost all the juice. Over under 2.75. She's heavily to the over. Udine, they've been off to a bad start. They finished last year badly. Napoli kind of off of a similar, you could say the same thing about them. But they are the 1.25 goal favorite here. So that makes me interested in Udine. I feel like I'm going to try my best to keep this off the card, though. Ultimately, Udine have looked so bad to start the year, and Napoli are maybe rounding into form as Kvaratskhelia gets a lot healthier, or Kvaradona as they call him, and Osimhen is still a terror. But ultimately, Napoli have looked a lot worse than they had in the past. So I guess I'll put Udinese getting 1.25 on that list. Inter Milan then hosts Sassuolo. Currently, Inter a 1.5 goal favorite at home with almost all the juice. Over under is 3.5, juice heavily to the under. But these are two teams that are going to try to score a ton. Inter will handle playing 2 matches in a few days much better than Sassuolo will. There's not really any sort of interest for me in Sassuolo whatsoever, under or side. Lazio then hosts Torino, last one on Wednesday. Lazio a quarter goal favorite at home with all the juice. Over-unders 2.25, juice to the under. Torino are going to control the ball and try to make this really hard on Lazio. Lazio maybe deserve better, but ultimately were put under a lot of pressure by Monza, who just went at them for 90 minutes and probably could have won that match. Lazio got a penalty and then really didn't do anything offensively since then. So Torino are very interesting to me right now. I like that quarter of a goal, especially when it looks like it's going to climb to a half. And I also like under 2.25 because I don't really think Lazio are going to score much. And Torino, they're going to possess the ball this in pure Juric style. They're going to try to have the ball as much as possible. They're not going to do a lot with it. They're going to try to score with it, of course, but it doesn't go very well for them in that department usually. And I think both those things fit into kind of going against Lazio at home. It's a little bit scarier, but I think Lazio have to prove it before we all of a sudden want to stay away from a scary home environment. Moving to Thursday, Monza hosts Bologna. Currently Monza a quarter goal favorite at home. All the juice on Bologna. Over-unders 2.5, juice heavily to under. I'm not sure I want to play an under with Monza because they are really a push forward, even if you're an inferior side, which they were against Lazio. It worked in a 1-1 draw. But also against Bologna, they're less talented and the smaller club. So that's a concern. It does make me interested in Bologna, though, getting that quarter of a goal. It's very juiced right now and probably will fall to pick them before this kicks off. But if it sticks around or gets a little bit of price improvement, I might be more interested in Bologna. Frosinone then hosts Fiorentina in a battle of one squad I've been backing a lot, and that's Frosinone, and they've played very well. They're half a goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over-unders 2.5, juice the over. Fiorentina are a little bit of a blind spot team for me, unfortunately. I'm rarely a believer in them. They have good players, but a lot of times it seems that I just haven't timed them very well. I haven't really found their bad performances as much as I'd like to. However, they're going on the road as a favorite. They got to go win, and especially giving half of a goal away. Draw is a full bet winner for Frosinone, so I'm not going to keep that off my interest list. I'll put it that way. I don't know that I love the under 2.5 as much, but I do have questions about Fiorentina's offense, especially away from home. Last but not least, Genoa hosts Roma. Currently, Genoa a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice on Roma on the road. Over-unders 2.25, juice heavily to under or all the way to under. We might see this one hit 2, which tells me that Roma's going to be rotating quite a bit, but they have so much offensive talent after having none of it to start the season. Bringing in Lukaku and Dybala getting healthy, that's all been huge. I'm kind of surprised this number is so low also on the not just on the total, but also the side. From my perspective, though, I'm going to wait. Genoa will probably move to a half a goal underdog before this kicks off. And honestly, I've kind of learned from Serie A markets when numbers are really small on underdogs, there's a good reason for it. And you should kind of believe it because believe it or not, there's been match fixing in Italy in the past. So I don't know how to explain necessarily what that all means, but it does make me very interested in potentially backing Genoa, but I'm going to have to do a lot more digging for a Thursday match than I've done on a Monday night currently. So for my best bet from Italy, I'm going to go with, Torino is really tempting just to keep fading Lazio. I do have a little bit of concern that they kind of wake up, though, from it. I think I'm going to go Salernitana getting a quarter of a goal. Just to me, that feels like it's not a sexy match by any means, but Empoli has been the worst team to start the league. They've got to win, and I think it's going to be really hard for them to do. So we've made it to the ultimate best bet portion of the show. Thank you for tuning in. If you're on YouTube, please hit subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. That'd be huge. Get me up the search bar. Or when someone types in betting, I think I come up higher on the list. If you leave a 5-star review, be huge. I'll read anything you put on there. Unless it's extremely ridiculous, but even then it'd probably be more fun that way. So if you find something, throw it on there, and either on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, and I'll review it, or really anywhere. Just if I see it, I'll read it. And then any questions, of course, slide in my DMs, _G Warner on Instagram, Twitter, and on Patreon. I haven't mentioned that in this portion of it. If you're not a patron yet, go check it out if you want to follow me across all the sports that I'm doing, which is everyone you could think of basically at this point. We're putting out content, reasoning, plays, and trying to make everyone as much money as possible as we try to tackle this life of extremely high inflation and Jerome Powell just trying to make the whole world poorer, not just the United States. So check that out, patreon.com/the_real_G Warner. And I guess it's time for the ultimate best bet. So let's go into it. So this is the real_G Warner on Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. And this is Betting the Pitch number 226, ultimate best bet portion of the show. From England, the Carabao Cup, I like Brighton getting a quarter of a goal at Chelsea. From Spain, La Liga, I like Las Palmas under 3.25 goals at Real Madrid. And last but not least, in Italy, I like Salernitana getting a quarter of a goal from Empoli. And for my ultimate best bet on this show, I'm going to go with Salernitana getting a quarter of a goal. A lot of drama off the pitch right now with their star striker, but if he comes back in this matchup, they probably close a pick'em or maybe even move to a favorite at pick'em. But until then, we don't know that's happening. Empoli off to the worst start in Serie A history, I believe. Haven't scored and have lost all 5 of their matches to start the year. They're supposed to win here. It's possible they kind of come back from the dead and show up and have their best performance of the year. But I'll take Antonio Candreva and Salernitana getting that quarter of a goal and root for a result at the very least on the road. And that'll do it for this episode of Betting the Pitch number 226. Thank you for tuning in. I'm exhausted, so I'm going to turn off here. But if you got anything you want to talk to me about, slide some DMs, and I'll once I see it, I'll respond. Thank you so much, and I guess have a very nice evening, or whenever you're listening to this. Have a great day.